Hi, this is More Movie Therapy, and this movie is a brand new one that, practically brand new, came out in 2018. But it was a very exciting movie, and I think it was a great success at the box office. It's the A Star is Born, starring Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga, and it was directed and I think partly written also by Bradley Cooper. And I'm calling this podcast Motherless Men. And this movie version is done in a far different style from the first one. It's a very naturalistic visual style where the pictures tell most of the story, and the dialogue seems very casual, sort of haphazard, almost incidental most of the time. The casting of Lady Gaga is a brilliant choice for this story because not only, obviously, is she a very talented musician, but because of the type of character that she is, it shows how faithfully, in their own modern way, the writers and director follow the emotional truth of the original movie. Lady Gaga is Allie, who is the Vicki Lester character from the earlier version. As I said in the review of the original Star is Born, the heroine must be a childlike woman who is still honest, sweet, and innocent. She believes in love and is only hindered from achieving success by a shyness that hides a very big talent. The Allie character in the modern version is another struggling waif like Judy Garland and Janet Gaynor in the earlier versions. Lady Gaga turns out to be perfect for this role. Underneath all that fantastic outfits she's always wearing and those crazy video antics that she does and that made her famous, when you take off all the makeup, as they do in this movie, and put her in a t-shirt with her natural hair, she has a charming, childlike quality, an honesty, a sincerity, which is completely essential for this role, and she delivers it. The heroine has to have an innocence and trust to believe in herself and in the power of true love, or else she would never believe in and fall in love with the distrustful hero. Bradley Cooper is very different from the type of male in the original. He isn't a hard-boiled cynic like Frederick March or James Mason, who both hide hearts of gold that are almost worn out. Cooper plays the role as a wounded man, exhausted by the demands of fame, with a heart of gold, worn out by drugs and the phoniness of the pop world. This works to an extent, but it does seem a little bit to undermine Lady Gaga's transformation later on in the movie to a sort of dressed-up pop star with wild clothes and orange hair. But I suspect her fans would have been very disappointed had she not done some of her usual Lady Gaga dress-up stuff. Even though Cooper isn't the angry cynic of the first versions of the film, he holds true to the essence of that character in his own way, and actually more explicitly. In the original version, Norman Maine has no parents or relatives who come into the story to support him at any point. Only the producer, Oliver Niles, seems to care about him in a sort of fatherly way. But while he's fond of Norman, he's very well aware of Norman Maine's weaknesses, especially for alcohol. In the Cooper version, when Jackson Maine, that's the Cooper role, and Allie have time alone in the parking lot, she sympathizes with him about how, though he is famous, no one cares about who he really is and about his feelings. She asks him about himself, and he tells her his sad story. He is the product of his father's midlife crisis when he knocked up Bradley's 18-year-old mom who died in childbirth. So here we have the actual theme of the story. Without a mother figure to love him or a reputable father to encourage him, Cooper's identity is entirely dependent on the whims and fickle loyalty of the public. Without a strong center that only some familial type of relationship can provide, Cooper and the original Norman Maine become dependent on the capricious, ever-changing adulation of the public, and can't survive without it, turning to alcohol for consolation. This is why the A Star is Born hero is always an alcoholic or a drug addict. They are addicted to fame, and without it they have no self and no self-love. This script plainly indicts both the mother and the father for contributing to the emotional problems of their talented, handsome son. And if you've read my book Bedeviled, you will understand perfectly why this story resonates so tellingly with me. My husband was doomed by being an abused child. He could never escape the wounds and emotional confusions his parents threw him into. As I watched both of these A Star is Born movies, I was amazed that even in the 1937 version, they recognized that when a person cannot experience love, and even if someone loves them and tries to help them, it still may not be enough. There is a void there, as Lady Gaga, as our heroine Allie, in the more modern version, says in her very touching song, which she writes for Jackson and sings to him. And the lyrics are, Tell me something, boy, aren't you tired trying to fill that void? Or do you need more? Ain't it hard to keep it so hardcore? I mean, really, she says it beautifully, and she says it all. Of course, she sings it much better than I've done here. But cynicism, hardcore drinking, and drugs are our hero's way of trying to fill that void, a void that a parent's love should have filled, but didn't. The heroines in both versions both have visible and very influential parental figures. In the 1937 version, it's Vicky's pioneer grandmother who loves and believes in her. Lady Gaga as Allie has a father figure very like the father figures in many early romantic comedies like It Happened One Night, where the heiress dives off her father's yacht to escape from him, or The Lady Eve, where the daughter defies her professional card shark father by falling in love with a man who is a mug, an easy mark. Allie and her singing talent are her father's pride and joy. His opinion is that the only reason she's not a success and a big star is that she isn't pretty. So her father despises fame, and Allie is holding true to her dad's values until Jackson comes along and gives her a big break. In the opening scene, with her long nose in the air, she tells Jackson that she could have been a big star if her nose wasn't so long. He replies, that's bullshit. We're all born with talent. Unless you get out there and say what you have to say, you'll never know. Say something people want to hear. In this version, I think having something to say and saying it and taking the consequences is the same as being somebody in the 1937 version. Allie's father actually changes his opinion of fame and tells his daughter to take advantage of Jackson's offer. So Allie replaces her father with her new lover. This is classic romance stuff, and boy did it work on screen. But though she loves him, Jackson is still a failing alcoholic and does embarrassing things to her out of jealousy. And he embarrasses himself even more visibly, wetting his pants when she is accepting her big award. By this point, he just seems totally pitiful. But she still loves Jackson, even though by the end he has descended into a truly pathetic, drug and alcohol-addicted remnant of a human being. She marries him anyway and remains loyal and is grateful to him for his love and appreciation of her. And this is when I think it's clear that he's another man who can't love because he doesn't have that mother, father, or grandmother who loved and supported him. She is about to give up her tour to stay with him to help him with his drug and alcohol problem. Even though he's insulted her and embarrassed her publicly, she still forgives him, and in her sweetness and innocence, she still loves him. It is Lady Gaga's manager who tells Jackson that he's holding her back by his drunken antics. So Jackson commits suicide when she says she will cancel her music tour to stay with him. He loves her, and he doesn't want to hold her back. The type of suicide Jackson uses in this version is a change from the script of the original, which I think really doesn't work. Jackson hangs himself in their garage, which seems to me a very angry, vengeful way to die, to kill yourself. It's very ugly, and you certainly have to think that this suicide is squarely aimed at Allie. I don't think they meant it that way, but it's an uncomfortable and confusing choice, in my opinion. But, fortunately we don't see it, and we don't see the body hanging there in the garage. But it's not the benign suicide of Norman Maine swimming out into the ocean and never coming back. And that kind of suicide can be passed off as an accident, as it was in the original film. But anyway, this is a perfect example of Movie Therapy 101. I should have known what this film is saying. It's great advice and to anyone who ever tried to succeed. To really get anywhere in life, you must be your authentic self. You can't imitate Edith Piaf at a drag queen night like Lady Gaga does, and when she's playing Ally. You can't imitate Greta Garbo like Esther Blodgett does in the first A Star is Born. As Jackson tells Ally, we're all born with talent. Unless you get out there and say what you have to say, you'll never know. Say something people want to hear. And the movie also tells us that love alone cannot save everyone. Some people have a bottomless void, as Lady Gaga sings in her song to Jackson. It's a void that's like diving into the deep end, as she says. Sometimes there's nothing you can do to save a person. If we are lucky, we all start out like Ally or Vicky, sweet, innocent people who believe in love, and that the world is fair and talent and hard work will succeed eventually. When you try to make your dream come true, you will break your heart, as Grandma says in the first version. There will be tragedy, not pathos, but tragedy, which is when people are destroyed by their own flaws. Ally and Esther both go on to great success, and we know that they will not be destroyed by their success or the loss of the person they love, because they've had someone in their life that has helped them to believe in themselves and to believe in their dream. Two wonderful movies. I hope you've enjoyed this, and I hope it makes life more interesting to look at movies and think about them in the personal way of what do they really mean to you and what are they telling you about yourself and about the people you know. I don't know. It's my whole life. I find it fascinating. Thank you so much.